Sorry, what was that?
I didn't know it was going to be you, Godless Engineer. I didn't know it was going to be you.
Oh, well, yeah. I emailed you from the Godless Engineering email.
Were you on Jay Passek's channel last night?
Uh, was I on what?
Jay Passek's channel.
No, I don't think so.
How did you hear about me? Did you just like email me out of nowhere, or did you hear about what we were? Because we were talking about evolution last night. I thought maybe you were there. Or
No, no, no. I mean, we had talked before on email.
okay, okay. I wasn't too
Yeah.
sure if it was part of the conversation I had last night.
No, no, no. You had written a couple comments on one of my YouTube videos. So I was like, "Hey, we can talk," and we kind of let it slip by at one point, and we never got right back around to talking again.
Well, yeah, it was nice to meet you, brother. Yeah, sure, no problem.
Yeah, it is nice meeting you too. So, yeah, so I saw a video that you recently put out. Um, where you were asking about Shannon Q's position on stuff. I don't want to talk about Shannon tonight, but what I do want to talk about is like I really don't know how you think evolution is supposed to happen or what the
Okay.
evolutionary theory actually is, and I'm wondering if you can kind of in your own words can you tell me how do you understand evolution, like the theory and everything?
Are we live?
Oh yeah.
We're live. Okay. Okay. I was hoping you can go first. Maybe you can go first about evolution, but I have no problem going first. Evolution is the descent with inherent and genetic modification to biodiversity of life and diverse with chemical and organisms.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's a good dictionary definition, but I'm just kind of wondering if you can try to explain it to
So
me,
that,
like how you
yeah,
understand it.
yeah, that is the definition of evolution. It's the descent with inherent and genetic modification of biodiversity of life with diverse with chemicals and organisms. That's actually R and Raw. That's R because I listen to R and Raw like all the time. He makes some good points. That's R and Raw's definition of evolution, which I completely agree with. Is he says a descent with inherent and genetic modification to biodiversity of life and diverse with chemical and organisms. That he said, and he yells that like R and Raw yells that at that one guy when I was watching the other day. So he yells it at him that is the definition of evolution. He said anything that is not that. He said it's not the definition. So there's more. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, it's the dictionary definition basically of evolution. So I don't have a problem with evolution, the dictionary definition of it, or even the evolutionary theory on the whole. I don't have a problem with any of it. I think there's substantial genetic and paleontological evidence through the fossil record to support evolution, and I've got various lines of evidence for that. But you still haven't answered my original initial question, which was, can you please tell me how you understand evolution to work?
Sure. 1 second, please. Sorry, just trying to find something. I had something set up and it's gone. Like I said, evolution is depending on what we're talking about. If we're talking from a Christian perspective or an atheistic perspective. Well, I'll just talk about it in general sense of evolution. Um, like I said, evolution is descent with inherent and genetic modification to biodiversity of life and diverse with chemicals and organisms. Now, when we're talking about evolution, we have to be clear about what we're talking about. So, because we have to be clear, because when we talk about evolution, we're talking about complex sociological and biological means. And we're talking about what happened during from evolutionary time and in history from society and experience from Darwinian evolution by natural selection. So some of the information I have will be coming from atheistic sources like Richard Dawkins, for example. So I listen to a lot of Richard Dawkins, and because he's a biologist, and he talks about why he doesn't believe in God because of evolution. And I don't mean, because I was having a conversation with Jay Pasek last night, and he kicked me off a few times because he wouldn't even let me get a few sentences out or a few words. because every time I try to talk to him, he would just get a little frustrated about what was going on about evolution because he seemed to be confused when I connected to the atheism and evolution. Some atheists don't like that connection between, evolution and atheism. But back to what I was talking.
Hold on. Sorry, I've let
Okay.
you speak for a little bit, but there is no connection between atheism and evolution. There's plenty of theists out there that accept evolution for the fact that it is, and they also accept the evolutionary theory, which is the explanation of how evolution happens and everything like that. So there are plenty of theists out there that accept it. I mean, evolution and atheism have nothing to do with one another whatsoever. So if we could keep away from that particular discussion, because I know that you have a lot of ideas on atheism and everything like that. But if we could just stick to how you understand evolution to have happened, like how you think evolution actually happens, like in nature, how you understand evolutionary theory to explain how evolution happens in nature.
Oh, okay, no problem. Okay, I'll just speak from my perspective then. So what we have is that there are three base. Well, when we talk about evolution, you have to understand the types. When someone says just evolution, people just think it's just one thing. Where in evolution, there's something called like divergent, convergent, and parallel evolution. So there's three types of evolution: divergent, convergent, and parallel evolution. Now, when you look at the origins of life, there are only two possibilities. Oh, my computer doing something. There are only two possibilities for the existence of life, which is spontaneous assembly from chemicals, or there's a creator who designed biological systems and mechanisms. So the question that when I speak to for Christians and atheists, when I speak to another atheist, like they'll always ask the question, like Richard Dawkins posed the question, how do you go from, and what's the Neil deGrasse Tyson, the other guy, the physicist, they both come to the conclusion, like, how do you go from organic molecules to a self-replicating molecule cell? And this has to do with anthropology, like how did human beings come into existence? So how do you go from, like, where did the first DNA cell came from is what I'm getting at. So how do you go from organic molecules to a self-replicating molecule cell, which would be DNA? So that's the first part where Christians and atheists kind of fight about.
So hold on. You just did. I had to go to define anthropology to make sure that I wasn't mistaken about this. But how the human evolution is not an like an anthropological question. It's an evolutionary biology question. It's a biology question. It's not like anthropology is the study of human societies, cultures, and their development. It's not how did humans develop. Like as far as a species, it's about how societies and cultures have developed around human beings. So, just small correction there.
Yeah, back to yeah. I do apologize, but usually anthropology is a larger scope of evolution, other aspects of evolution. But when we talk about the evolution as a whole, that's what I'm talking about as a whole. So there's going to be more concepts around evolution than that part. But when I'm talking about atheism, I'm talking about where complex sociological and biological means from time and history, from society and experience. Now, when we talk about Darwinian evolution, we're talking about by natural selection, and there are branches of amoeba in contrast to prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells, which are highly organized. Now, there's also bacteria and archaea and prokaryotes. Now, these has to do with living organisms that are eukaryotes, and an amoeba are eukaryotes that basically consist of a single cell. So when we talk about
Well,
evolution,
if I can correct you, eukaryotic cells are structured cells, whereas prokaryotic cells are unstructured. So, like you would have the DNA material just sort of freely floating around in the cell, that would be prokaryotic. Whereas eukaryotic, you would have like a nucleus, you would have mitochondria, you would have organelles of different types. So that's the difference between prokaryotic and eukaryotic. They're both still single-celled organisms. They're just
Yes, yeah, that's what I
okay.
said. And there's new alleles. And when you talk about genotype and phenotype, there's natural selection, genetic drift, mutations, and gene flow. So there's different kinds of different kinds of evolution. There's mutations and
Well,
there's alleles in the gene pool, and the mechanisms in evolutionary change consider you have to consider the natural selection and genetic drift that shows these main types of evolution, which is divergent, convergent, and parallel evolution.
okay.
And so, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt you again, but
Okay.
like it really just feels like you're throwing out a whole bunch of words that you really don't understand what you're saying, because I mean, you seem to be mixing up terms here, like the natural
No, no, no.
selection and change in
I,
alleles and
I no. This is from. I can quote
okay.
you my sources.
Okay,
I have
how about this? Can you explain to me how natural selection works?
right. By sociological and biological from time and history, from society and experience. So there's microevolution and there's macroevolution. So we have to be very clear on our terms because
No,
there's
it's
also
all
genetic.
just evolution. Like I
No,
get it's just that see the difference in micro and macro is just a difference in scale, and but they're both
no.
just still evolution. Like it boils down to just being evolution. So like my question right now though is how like if you okay, so if you can't explain to me how like in nature evolution is supposed to actually happen, under your understanding, can you at least explain to me how you understand natural selection to occur?
Right. Again, natural selection, according to the way I understand it, natural selection has to do with the organic molecules to a self-replicating molecule cell. So, like, how did the first human beings come to existence? This has to do with natural selection and Darwinian evolution by the biological means of what it means for species and organisms to come into existence. So, um, people that, in the absence of God, that don't believe in God or any sort of creator, are going to say that we don't need a God for human beings to come into existence. We came from a single replicating molecule cell by natural selection, and this is all what Richard Dawkins says in his book, so that he
Okay.
says that there's no God, there's no meaning, there's no purpose. We came from DNA, we came from RNA, from a self-replicating molecule cell. This is what
This is
the
not answering my question whatsoever.
okay, but again, then again, maybe you just don't understand evolution because I have sources, Dr. Fargerstorm, Dr. Prothero, Dr. Stanley, and these are all well-known
Okay.
names
Okay,
in
I think it's hilarious how you say that I don't understand evolution. I have to laugh at that for a second, because I mean, I've asked you simply to explain natural selection. I'm really trying hard not to answer the question for you, because I mean, all I want is for you to explain with an example. Like give me an example, like maybe a bear, or maybe bugs on a leaf or something like that. Like these are easy, popular examples that I'm sure that you've run across for
uh,
how natural selection is supposed to work.
I guess I have to water down evolution for you because you clearly don't understand. But when we're talking about evolution, you can talk about the giraffe, you can talk about the birds and their beaks and how they evolved and for food. You can talk about how different animals and species evolved during time. I really don't see your point about other animals. But when we talk about natural selection, we're talking about how human beings came into existence through natural selection, which I don't agree on whatsoever because I'm a Christian. But when we're talking about the Darwinian evolution by natural selection, this this has to do with organic molecules and DNA and self-replicating molecules. So I'm sorry you don't understand what evolution and gradualism is, and there's punctuated equilibrium in evolution. So do you
So
know what gradualism is and punctuated equilibrium?
I mean, I do, but that's not the point. The point here
I
is
don't
is
think
that you,
you.
no, hold on. The point is here is that I've asked you to explain the actual process of natural selection as we observe it in nature, and or at least just the scientific like viewpoint of it. Like how, like what does science say about natural selection and how it occurs in nature? And I mean, you say that I don't understand evolution and everything, but you can't even explain to me a simple process like natural selection. I
I've explained it, but you seem not to understand. You can't even
No.
explain a
You've
graduate.
talked about abiogenesis. You've talked about how
I didn't say
single-celled
anything about
organisms can go to
abiogenesis.
multicellular organisms. You haven't talked about natural selection and how it actually occurs in nature.
I haven't talked about abiogenesis not one time. I don't even know why you brought
Well,
that up.
I mean, you haven't said the word abiogenesis, but the topics that you've talked about so far are part of abiogenesis, namely the idea that a creator had to create everything instead of living materials developing naturally out of inorganic materials.
That's not even close to what I said.
Oh, okay.
Um,
I can. Well, I mean, luckily it's being streamed, so I can go back and I can re-listen. So if I
I
misunderstood,
hope you do. Yeah, I hope you do. Because I didn't say anything about abiogenesis. It's about abiogenesis. You brought up natural selection. I was bringing up other doctors and basically scientists and biologists in the field that you're probably not even close to aware of. You said you know about evolution, and I don't think you even know about the top names in the field. You know
why
that
does
study
that matter as far as understanding how evolution works?
there's other people that are educated in the subject than we are. We have to get quotes from these other, unless you're saying you're the most educated person on the planet, then
I didn't
I don't
say
know if that's
that.
what you're saying. But there's other people that know about this subject more than me and more than you, and I'm going to quote them because that's what real people do. We quote other people that know about the subject more.
Well, yeah,
Can you
but
quote?
Sky, listen,
Yeah.
I can tell that you're reading from like other people. Just because you can read the words that other people write does not mean that you understand what you're saying.
So you're saying you don't read what other people write?
No. That's not what I said. I said that just because you can read what other people write doesn't mean that you understand what they are trying to tell you. And I'm trying to ask you. I've asked you two separate questions so far that you've not been able to actually answer. It's
Wow.
describe no. It's describe the process of evolution as science explains it, or describe the process of natural selection as science explains it. So, or just your understanding of what the science says about how natural selection operates in the wild.
Right. Okay. I mean, again, there's if you're gonna believe, or we're gonna talk, if we're gonna talk about evolution, you have to realize that you have to make a choice in what theory of evolution you're going to accept because as being true, because you certainly can't believe both gradualism and punctuated equilibrium simultaneously since they're contradictory. So, like somebody like Richard Dawkins can take punctuated equilibrium and modify it to gradualism. So I
Wait,
don't
can you explain punctuated equilibrium? I mean, just for like the audience's sake, could you explain that?
punctuated equilibrium.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has to do with because there's many types. There's punctuated equilibrium. So punctuated equilibrium requires the occurrence of like unlikely events of like mutations that small number of individuals that mutation rate is low and species population must be at large. So there's this deeper study on the individuals that genetically are isolated by larger populations, which is called species sorting. So punctuated equilibrium has to do with genetic isolation and multiple mutations that appear to be new species but never get co-expressed. So punctuated equilibrium requires like an unlikely event of like multiple mutations in the lowest form of few individuals of a large population. So it's unlikely genetic isolation of these specific individuals from a vast majority of the population. It's not possible that these unlikely events could occur by chance occasionally. So punctuated equilibrium requires that these unlikely events could occur. So Um,
Actually, punctuated equilibrium doesn't have anything to do with unlikely events or anything like that. Just to pull from direct definition from Google here, just so that everybody is aware of this particular term that he's using. The hypothesis that punctuated equilibrium is the hypothesis that evolutionary development is marked by isolated episodes of rapid speciation between long periods of little or no change. So I could see, I guess, vaguely in your description of what you like that you're talking about punctuated equilibrium, but you're also introducing a lot of terms in it that don't really come up with punctuated equilibrium, like
oh,
unlikely.
they
That's
do.
that's the
They
main
do.
one that I heard in all of that was you saying that they're unlikely events. It's like, well, no, that's not what punctuated equilibrium is. So
That's hilarious. I don't. You just read something from Wikipedia, and you're going to tell me what it means. And
no, I
when
mean,
a
I
lot,
was pretty straightforward. I read it off of Google. I mean, I just did a
oh
simple
wow,
Google to
cool.
find.
That's much better than an actual biologist. Uh, have you ever even heard of the top names in the field about biology?
I
Can you
don't
give me a name?
understand. I no. What does that have to do with anything? Like, it doesn't really matter who I've read or anything like that. I
Really?
understand. I understand how evolution is supposed to work as we observe it in nature. And all I'm
But
trying to get you to do is explain the process to me of how, like a general overview of the process of how evolution is supposed to work, or the general overview of how natural selection is supposed to work. I mean, these are basic things that you can figure out, like on the internet, on YouTube. I mean, these are pretty high level things.
yeah, I actually go to real biologists from real firsthand literature, like biologist Fogerstorm, biologist Prothero, biologist Stanley and Cheatham and Stanley. There's many books that I could quote that are telling that I'm spot on with my information here. I'm sorry you don't know these names, but there's the empirical case for a punctuated model of evolution by the dynamics of evolution by Stanley and Cheatham, and these are top names in the field of biology. And this is who I study. So for you to say I'm wrong and I don't understand, you can't even quote any biologists. All you can quote is Google. So
I
like I don't.
why does, like, if I could quote a biologist right now, does that give me any kind of credibility?
It depends who on the biologist you quote. I mean,
Okay. So
I
I
mean,
mean,
it's
I really
no,
don't
I don't know
I
why
don't
you think that's
understand.
funny.
Like you
Why
don't
is that
have
funny?
to listen. You don't have to quote biologists or anything like that. You don't have to quote papers about evolution in order to understand the basic processes that surround evolutionary theory. Well, like
But
just how evolution is supposed to happen, and even how natural selection is about happens. I mean, you can give me a brief overview of it without like having to pull out all of these, papers. I'm trying to start. Okay, so I'm trying to start at the very top, and then we can drill down at the bottom. What you're wanting to do is start at the very bottom with stuff that I personally think that you don't really understand what's being said. But what I'm trying to do is start at the top with a very brief kind of overview, just to make sure that we both understand evolution. That's
uh,
where I want to start out at, and so far it's been like almost 30 minutes, and I have not been able to get just like a narrative of how evolution is supposed to happen, or natural selection is supposed to happen. So if you could give me some kind of narrative, tell me a story about how science explains natural selection.
a story. Okay, let me give you a story. Let's see here. Logical predictions of evolutionary theories. You have to look at the data, and there's not really a story. There's just like the data. I can't tell you about like how how birds and how giraffes and I guess if you want to talk about how a giraffe evolved and how they have long necks, and, the theory of how they have long necks and how they evolved, but I don't really see the point of talking about that. Again, evolution is a very random process. It doesn't follow the usual rules of biology and
It's
chemistry.
not a random process.
What?
It is not a random process.
Where are you getting this information from?
Because I understand natural fucking selection. I understand selection pressures that power the evolution process. Like I actually understand these processes, and I really don't think that you do. So I'm trying to like okay,
Wow.
listen. When I say tell me a story or tell me a narrative, what I'm talking about is Billy the Bear was out in the woods one day, and his
Oh
brother,
my
who is
God.
stark white, whereas he is dark brown, his brother gets killed, and then he is able to propagate his species better. And then he has three kids.
Wow.
One of them is completely white, living in the woods. The other two are brown. The one bastard child that is white, he gets killed. And so then those two bears that are brown, like propagate out there. Like that is the kind of thing that I'm looking for. Could
Oh my God. Yeah, I don't give you a story. That just sounded extremely incoherent to me. I'm sorry. Um, I mean, if you don't, I don't know where you're getting this information from. You have to actually study these things. And do you even know the three types of evolution? Can you at least give me that? I already
there
said it.
there's only evolution. I
Oh
get that
my
you want to
God.
separate out micro and macro, and I'm not exactly sure what other kind of because you've mentioned several different things that you say is like different kinds of evolution, but they haven't been different
Well,
kinds of evolution.
I thought you were, I thought you knew about these subjects, right?
I do.
Okay, then what are the three main types of evolution?
There's only one type of evolution. I
Wow.
mean,
And no, there's not. No, there's not. There's divergent, convergent, and parallel evolution, and there's also, like I said, there's more. I mean, you can't just skip over the punctuated equilibrium and gradualism. That I mean, and do you even know what these terms mean?
yes, I do. You do not. Sky, you don't like when you throw out punctuated equilibrium. I really don't know why you do it. I don't understand why
I,
you throw out these terms. Like just because
uh,
those particular things happen in evolutionary trees, the three things that you say are the main types of evolution, just because those things happen in evolutionary trees doesn't mean that those are different types of evolution. There's only one evolution. You have different ways of explaining how the evolution happened, like microevolution being basically adaptation in a single species, whereas macroevolution would be speciation. But I mean, these are just interchangeable words here that we're all using to reference the same process, and that's evolution. So you want to claim that there are different types of evolution, but there really aren't. There's just one type of evolution, and that's evolution. There's no need to complicate it like you want to make it out to be.
oh my God. So, okay, there's one type of evolution, yeah, but within the branch of evolution, there's also natural selection, genetic drift, gene flow. I
Yeah.
mean, divergent, convergent, and parallel evolution, macro and micro. You kind of got it right on macro evolution. You said
Okay. Okay.
speciation.
So explain gene flow to me, could you?
Yes, it has to do with. It consists of the. Okay, when you're talking about eukaryotes, and you're talking the amoeba and the single cell organisms and genotype and phenotypes. A gene flow has to do with the genotype and phenotype, like genetic drift, mutation, and natural selection. So gene flow has to do with certain sources of alleles in a gene pool and mechanisms of evolutionary change by natural selection and genetic drift. Now, these types of evolution are divergent, convergent, and parallel evolution. And this has to do with genetic modification of biodiversity of life and diverse with chemicals and organisms. This is what I mean, that's what it is. I don't know what more do you want. I
Okay.
can
So
quote
so
other
let me
biologists.
for the edification of everybody that's watching. I've pulled up Berkeley's website on evolution, understanding evolution. Gene flow, also called migration, is any movement of individuals and or the genetic material they carry from one population to another. Gene flow includes lots of different kinds of events, such as pollen being blown to a new destination or people moving to new cities or countries. If gene versions are carried to a population where those gene versions previously did not exist, gene flow can be a very important source of genetic variation. In the graphic below, the gene version for brown coloration moves from one population to another, and they show this like little diagram where you've got a circle of green bugs and then a circle of brown bugs, and you have one brown bug moving over to the green bug population where they will, propagate and everything like that, and they'll change up the genes. It provides new genetic information to add to it. So, I mean, that's what gene flow is. And honestly, out of everything that you said, I would not come away thinking that I understood what gene flow was.
Again, gene flow consists of concepts that are a little bit more than what you read and what I've given
I
to you.
just read it. Like I just did it.
Yeah, there's more to it than that. There's not just a little sentence you read on Google. There's a little bit more, I've discussed about
Look,
the different types of evolution. Go ahead.
I'm just looking for you to explain the process of things. Like, how are things supposed to happen? You don't have to drill down to the nitty gritty, like, in order to basically explain to me so that I know that you understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, again, you can understand what I'm talking about by understanding the evidence of what I'm giving to you. Because, like, again, if you look at the fossil record for organisms, the evolution is a myth. It's just simply there's no fossil record of any of this to be true. And
Hmm.
biologists like Stanley, Cheatham, and Yang, they all come to I can quote many biologists to you, but I don't,
I really don't care who you can or cannot quote. I'm really just concerned with how you understand evolution to happen. And you're also very wrong about the fossil record, because not only is the hominid fossil record very verbose in how we evolved from the proto-ape ancestor that we have with all of the other great apes, but also you can explain like whale evolution, because we've been able to map out the evolution of how whales came to be. And they started off as land quadrupeds that eventually moved to the sea. So, I mean, and those are just the two examples I can pull, off the top of my head. So, what you're saying is just not true. And again, you have not explained the basic process of evolution or natural selection for me. You haven't been able to do that whatsoever.
No, I think I did. I think maybe you missed it. But like I said, when you talk about the origin of human beings, let's take something simple like the origin of human beings. Like, because then we have, if you believe in evolution and you study evolution, there is the Neanderthal and there's bipedal ancestors, and then there's the Homo erectus, and we are Homo sapiens. So the Homo erectus died out, a part of our ancestors, and the Neanderthal isn't a human being. So we did not come from apes. I mean, if you can look at the
Well,
fossil record, I don't know why
so
you
so
said
okay
apes.
okay okay. So let's go off of that. You say that we're not apes, right? We're not part of the great ape family, which is basically you saying that we're not Homo sapiens. But I'll let that go. So if that's the case, then could you please explain chromosome 2 and what we find genetically there? Do you want me to explain what I mean by that?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so with chromosome 2 in our own Homo sapien DNA, what we find is chromosome 2 has telomeres in the middle of the arm of one of our chromosomes. Also, we have two centromeres, one of them being deactivated into it. And it's very obviously from an end-to-end fusion from two chromosomes in other apes. So the other apes have more chromosomes than we do, except we have one chromosome that was fused at some point in our history, and that's what sets us apart from them. So could you explain why that is there if evolution is not the answer?
You can believe that, but it's certainly not true. I mean, we did not come from. I mean, you can say apes are our ancestors, but if you study the actual evidence in the data, the ancestors that you're speaking about, they had bigger, like the ancestors, like the Homo erectus and Neanderthal, they had bigger skulls. They didn't have posable thumbs. They couldn't write. So they're not human beings. I
We
mean, there might be
hold on. Did you just say that we're not related to them because they couldn't write?
no. They are our ancestors, yes, but they're not human beings. They're only our
What does the
ancestors.
word ancestor mean to you?
Yeah, there are. It just means that we're related. That's all it means. We're
Oh,
not.
oh,
We're
okay. So we
completely
are related to the other great apes.
we're related, but we're not. We're not made from an ape. That's not what the fossil record says.
But I mean, we're not. You're okay. So I have to agree. You're right. We're not made from an ape. We evolved out of a common ancestor that we have with other great apes. But so you're saying that our evolutionary history, we're all related, like from because we've had opposable thumbs since Homo habilis, right? So you're saying that Homo habilis, Homo erectus, and then Homo sapien, that's how we've changed and evolved, right?
Well, no. I said that they're our ancestors, and Homo sapiens, our species, is a completely new species compared to the Homo erectus and Neanderthal and the different bipedal ancestors that were a part of evolution. Because if you study the fossil record, you can see that the human beings today are completely different than the Neanderthal and Homo erectus. Like they don't their skulls were bigger, their hands were bigger. They didn't have workable thumbs. They weren't able to do certain things because their body wouldn't let them. And human beings today, we have intellect, we have a mind, we can write things, we can write symphonies, we can write music and things like that. For the Christian perspective, that's why we say that we're made in the image of God, and then that the Homo sapiens is part of God's design and creation. So since God created organisms, we can understand that God, in God's perspective, that these things just didn't just pop up out of nowhere. They were designed. And even in Darwin, even his last book, Darwin, he even admits that the human eye could have never evolved. Like it's scientifically impossible for the human eye to evolve. It had to have been supernaturally created because
No,
there's no
wait,
way.
wait. Are you saying Darwin said that?
Yeah, Darwin said that. Yeah,
Mm, no,
and
I don't think Darwin. Where did Darwin supposedly say this?
his book. I can certainly get it for you. The human. Actually, there's a picture that he says that, like a quote, like a meme, and like he
Oh,
says
okay.
that.
So not really a quote, just some kind of meme you found on the internet. I got it.
No, it's from his book into a meme. Like you can make memes out of quotes from books. It's him saying that in his book. But again, when you talk about evolution, the human eye could have never evolved. Like the human eyeball. So the
Citation
fall.
needed.
Go ahead.
I was just saying citation needed. I just
Oh, now you want to
like
cite.
if you're saying that it could not have evolved when we have examples of every step of the eye evolution that's still in existence today, and we've been able to show the evolutionary process of the eye from a collection of photosynthetic sensitive cells to what we have now as like human eyes or the other various types of eyes we find in nature. We've been able to show that progression and find fossil record of that progression, as well as them. And I'm stressing this point: they are still in existence today. All of the steps of eye evolution. So, I mean, what you're saying doesn't make sense.
Well, when you actually look at the origins, though, when you look at the origins and the possibility of the existence of evolution and the existence of life, the human eyeball from the evolution perspective is saying that, okay, there's no God, we came from evolutionary chance. The human eyeball evolved spontaneously from life from chemicals.
Well,
Um, uh,
again, 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 you're see again you're see again you're again you're again you're again you're again you're again you're again again you just brought up a biogenesis.
Well, okay, you're talking about non-living things coming into existence. Well, I did speak from the atheistic perspective that spontaneously something could come into life from nothing, from non-living matter. But that's not my view. I'm just saying that, on my view, there's a creator God who designed biological mechanisms and systems. So
Yeah, well,
there's
I mean that there's no evidence to suggest that. But my point is that evolution is not abiogenesis. So you bringing it up really is pointless in this conversation. Not to mention the
yeah.
fact that you have yet to actually define like the process of evolution or the process of natural selection. I mean, I feel like you can't explain to me how natural selection occurs. This we're going on 40 minutes now. You have yet to actually tell me how that process happens.
Well, I'm hoping the people in the audience would understand. I mean, it's okay that you don't. I understand that you don't understand, but the natural selection has to do with complex sociology and biology, from evolution, from time and history, from society and experience, by Darwinian evolution, by natural selection. That's exactly what natural selection is. It has to do with survival of the fittest, and what genes survive because the genes are best at surviving. So certain genes that died off, for example, weren't strong enough. They didn't survive because those genes didn't. If you can have another gene meet up with another gene to survive, and that's fine. They can survive by natural selection. But when you're talking about sociological and biological means of evolution, what happens is, in evolution, time and history, from society and experience, from Darwinian evolution, creates this natural selection that we came from, like, like a bear became a dog became a horse became a tree. That's evolution, really. I mean, it's something that I.
Finally, that's what I've been
Oh,
trying to get out of you. That right there, because for what that's not evolution. That's not anything that evolution says is or has ever been explained whatsoever. That's not what it is. But finally, thank you. That is the thing that I've been trying to get you to tell me since the very beginning of this broadcast. Oh God.
I hope I helped you. I hope I helped you.
No, you didn't. So, do you understand what the law of monophyly is?
Say it again.
Do you know what the law of monophyly is?
Nah, I'm not aware. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, good. I'm glad I can maybe teach you something. So, basically, what the law of monophyly says is that when a species or an organism is part of one clade, it will always be part of that particular clade or that particular group of organisms, right? It can only
Right.
ever change after that point, but like into newer or different versions of that clade, but it's still that clade. So, like when you talk about bears turning into dogs, they're not necessarily going to turn, like bears don't turn into dogs, right?
Well, yeah,
And
I was giving a really shitty example, but yeah.
well, could you give me a better example of how evolution works?
Well, I don't believe it does work. That's my position. But the way
I
evolutionary works for other people, I mean, that is, if you look at the there's a and when you take the book, like any evolutionary book, you can look this up everywhere. They show you like this tree, and like the how this tree evolved through different like organisms and species, including like bugs and spiders and things. So this tree explains, like, but they don't show you the fossil record underneath. They just want you to believe in this 5 point tree, and it's in all scientific books. But in the end, they say that, like, somebody, like, for a biologist to say that, oh, human beings came from evolution is completely not justifiable by the fossil record. Not even close. I mean, you can say that we came from uh, what did you say? Naturalistic causes by natural selection, but for someone to say that as a fact, like, it's a fact that we came from natural selection. I mean, there's nothing about a fact about evolution. It's all just a theory that we came from apes and things like that. I don't believe in evolution at all. So I'm a Christian.
Okay.
So
So just to clarify before, when you were talking about a tree, you were talking about an evolutionary tree that shows the progression of organisms and how they changed in a
there you go.
diagram form. That's what you were talking
Yeah,
about.
yes, it's in every single book. When you talk about biology, when you talk about evolution, they bring up this tree, and they did a experiment, try to recreate like, can we produce a single cell DNA out of just bringing up the same conditions during that time? Like, can we produce the DNA out of just like amino acids, for example? And there's a scientist, a biologist, and I have a video where this guy tried to do it. He recreated like rain and lightning and all this stuff, and he tried to create the amino acids and try to create a self-replicating molecule cell, which is
Are you
DNA.
talking about the Miller-Urey experiment?
I'm sorry.
Are you talking
The what?
about the Miller-Urey experiment?
No, no. This is a video of it was what's his name? I can't remember. He was an atheist for a long time, and he became a Christian. Lee Strobel, and he has like a 3-part video where he talks about science and how when he was an atheist, he believed in evolution, how there was no God, until he spoke to like other biologists and other scientists, and he came to the conclusion that it was all hogwash, basically.
So wait a second. How do we go from you chastising me for not having like quotes from biologists to mentioning Lee Strobel videos from YouTube? Why does Lee Strobel have to come into this conversation in the first place? This is a conversation over evolution. Lee Strobel doesn't have any kind of say in evolution or anything like that because, I mean, he doesn't even understand evolution. None of those apologists understand evolution. I'm trying to figure out, like, you understanding what evolution is and how bears don't turn into dogs and how that's not how evolution works. You still don't seem to understand how natural selection actually works.
Jesus Christ, man. Natural selection works by complex sociology and biology, from evolution, from, let's say, chemistry and biology, from time and
No,
history, from
no,
society. How are you gonna say no when that's the answer? I mean,
no. That's not the answer, though. That's not what natural selection is.
then you haven't studied anybody in the field. Like, you haven't studied Stanley, Ham, Prothero. I don't know why you're laughing. I think you understand that you have never read an actual book on evolution. Uh,
Oh yes,
can you?
I'm the
Yeah.
one. No,
I mean,
Skyout. I mean, I'm not gonna give you the answer for natural selection. I mean, you keep reading off the same definition that you probably got written down in a Word document or something like that to pull out whenever somebody wants to talk about natural selection. But I mean, you haven't actually described the process. What I'm wanting you to do in like just natural language is explain to me the process of natural selection and how that can change an organism's, an organism in general. So, like, you haven't been able to explain the actual process to me yet. Like, you've got to be able to actually explain the process. And when you rattle off about natural selection, you bring up things that are like vaguely reminiscent of abiogenesis when you start talking about it. And then you throw in like sociology and all this other stuff. Like, I don't I don't understand what you're trying to say because you're just using a lot of what are they called, $10 words or something, $25 words or something like that. Like
um,
you're just using
yeah.
big words.
Well, yeah. I mean, I got quotes from different biologists, but again, I accept microevolution, and I don't accept natural selection because I don't believe we came from apes. I don't believe we came from mutation. I don't believe
But
our brain.
earlier you said that we did come from apes.
No, I said they were no, I said they're our ancestors, and the Homo sapiens are a different creation made in the image of God. Like, we have a
See,
different. You know
now
what
I
I'm
don't
saying?
think that you understand what an ancestor is.
Oh my God, I don't think you do. I really
Okay,
don't think you.
okay, okay, let's go from there. Explain to
Yeah.
me what an ancestor is.
It just means relative, man. I mean, we don't need to break down every single definition
I feel like
unless
we
you
do because I really don't. I don't because like
don't
when I
understand.
hear relative, like you understand that relative and ancestor means that we are like genetically, in the case of evolution, paleontologically, we're all like connected as if we were evolved out of like our ancestors were the proto ape, and then we have all of the different versions of the homo genus until now. So I mean, when you say that they're our ancestors and that we're related to them, and then you say, oh, but we're specially created, Like
Mm.
that particular like clusterfuck of a sentence does not make sense in any kind of context.
Well, again, you probably just, well, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but the creation design of Homo sapiens, we're designed and created. We didn't evolve. Or this is an X-Men. I'm not Wolverine. I didn't evolve and I have weird powers and this is X-Men and Professor X is there. I mean, I mean, we don't need to mutate and and watch that movie. But what I'm talking about is that on the complex, see, when you talk about biological mechanism, biological diversity, we're talking about the concept of gradualism and punctuated equilibrium. Again, this has to do with evolution. Back to what you said about earlier about, oh, I don't understand this. I don't understand how, like, the ancestors and how that were related to the ancestors of the ape. Well, I do understand because, like, when you actually study evolution, again, back to the human eye could have never evolved. And it's in every single textbook. Even Darwin quotes that the human eye is scientifically and biologically impossible for a human eye to evolve out of just like chemicals and mutation and natural selection. A bear doesn't turn into a dog doesn't turn into a horse doesn't turn into a tree. And that's what evolution tries to get you to believe, that there's no God, there's no meaning, there's no purpose. We're here by evolutionary means.
Plenty of theists
Uh,
believe that evolution is a fact. Plenty of theists accept evolution as a fact. So, no, evolution is not about denying God. It doesn't have anything to do with God. So, could you just, like, fucking stop, like, trying to connect evolution to God? Because it's really not. I mean, you can believe what you want to about how, like, organic life started here on the Earth. You could fucking believe Thanos snapped it into existence. It doesn't really matter. But the point is that after that point, evolution did take place. It did happen, and we have genetic and paleontological evidence that suggests this. So,
that is a good movie, though. I liked it, The Avengers Endgame. I thought it was really good. Sorry, you said Thanos. I have the whole Marvel thing here. But again, you said you didn't want to bring up God, but God has to do with design and creation. So I can accept microevolution in God. There's no problem there because it's a scientifically reliable theory. It describes intelligent design by God in creation. That's why I know you don't want to bring up, you don't like God in the subject, but
well,
for
no, no,
Christian,
no, 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 no. See, you're totally misrepresenting my problem with what you had said. Because my problem is that you were connecting evolution to God, not that you were bringing up God like in terms of intelligent design or creationism. That wasn't my problem. My problem is when you try to connect evolution or evolutionary theory to the idea that there's no God. Regardless of whether or not evolution is true or false, it has nothing to do with God, like evolution.
crazy. That's crazy because, like, when I read documentations like from atheists, that's exactly what they say. Like Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, Christopher Hitchens, they all say that God does not exist. So if God does not exist, how did human beings get here? And the atheists say we don't need a God, we got evolution. And so you got to have some sort of justification of how human beings got here in the absence of God. Uh, if God does not exist, then we came from evolution. If evolution is not true, then where did we come from? So that you're kind of stuck with that kind of issue. If But that's fine, you don't have to believe in evolution in order to be an atheist. A lot of people really hate when I do that. It's because, like, when you study Sam Harris and Christopher Hitchens and all the atheists in the community, they oftenly say that we don't need a God. We've evolved by apes. We've evolved by our ancestors. We have the fossil record, which is complete hogwash to me because we don't have a fossil record.
Okay, do you know who Mary Schweitzer is?
Say it again.
Do you know
Schweitzer?
who Mary Schweitzer is?
No, sounds familiar though.
Well, I should hope so. It's one of these scientists that you think that I don't know or haven't read or anything like that. Mary Schweitzer is an American paleontologist at North Carolina State University. She
Ah,
accepts evolution. So does that mean that she's an atheist? Since you seem to think that only atheists accept evolution, would you consider her to be an atheist?
no, 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 no. You misunderstood what I said. I didn't. I'm a Christian and I accept evolution. What I don't accept is macro evolution.
No,
I
no, no.
accept my.
I mean, she's not as dumb fuck as that. She knows that evolution is just evolution, right? So, I mean, she doesn't separate it out micro, macro, or anything like that in this particular context. She just accepts evolution. So, I'm wanting to know, what do you think of theists who accept evolution entirely? Do you think they're fake or something like that? Like, what do you? I mean, you're sitting here acting like evolution is this atheistic propaganda thing, and it's really not. It's just science.
That's funny. You said atheistic propaganda because I said that in my video like the other night. I said that everything that the atheists say is atheist propaganda from Nazi Germany. But because like Mao, Mussolini, Popeye,
Oh
and
God, can
Stalin,
we
they're
not
all.
talk about this right now?
I know. It's funny you said that word though. You said atheist. It kind of threw me off on a tangent, but I'm trying to keep it fun, man. I don't want you to go, bug all out and go crazy. But no, no, no. I don't think they're delusional. I don't think they're not a Christian because they accept microevolution. I accept evolution, and I'm a Christian. So the only reason why I claim atheism and natural selection is because of all the biological books and all the atheistic books that they produce, like Richard Dawkins, for example. He's the one who started all this. That atheists have to make a choice, like either God created us or evolution created us. You can't be agnostic about it. I mean, unless you're going to say there's a third option of how human beings got here, I really don't know that third option. Um, I believe in evolution. That we are. I'm a Christian. But I believe that evolution is from design, which organisms were endowed by their designer. So I don't believe it just popped up out of nothing. Like, see, the thing is, if God does not exist, then organisms and species and things like that
Okay,
came out of nothing.
let's try this. Let's try this. Can you give me one solid piece of evidence that we did not evolve out of a proto ape, which we share a common ancestry with other great apes?
Yeah, it's very easy. Well, there's a lot of books you have to read, but it boils down to the fossil record. That
What kind of
there's no.
books? What kind of books are you reading that prove that hominid evolution isn't a thing?
Well, there's I have a book here. Biologists put on mathematical glasses. A book called Punctuated Equilibrium: Paleontological Perspective. The empirical case of punctuated model of evolution. The dynamics of evolution. The tempo of evolution. The paleontological documentation of species by Williamson and Stanley and Sheeham. These are the top names in the field. And if
So,
you,
and in those books, they literally say that humans did not evolve from apes, or well, from a proto ape that they share with a common ancestry with other. Like, if I look up those books right now, and I do a word search in, like, let's say Kindle or something like that, and I look for certain words that would indicate that they directly say, and this proves hominid evolution isn't a thing. Like, will I find that in those books, or are you using these books thinking that you understand what they're saying, and then you're coming to the conclusion that hominid evolution couldn't have happened?
you can read the books for yourself. I'm just talking about the fossil record that they will tell you that the fossil record is incomplete. There's no data. There's also another side of evolutionists that tell you that there is data. The 10% data that we came from apes. You can get someone to say that. I'm saying that you can find any biologist to say that we came from apes. It's really not that hard to find that. But when you actually look at the
No,
evidence,
because it's the majority of like, if not 100%, it's the majority of scientists that would say that particular fact, because
right
it is a
example
fact.
like if I take the biologist Fogger Storm, he says that modern molecular biology tells us that human beings arose 100,000 years ago, confirmed by 3 independent techniques, and 50,000 years ago, less than 50,000 years ago. So the data ties in well with the fossil record for that, for the human descent. That's fine. But the more sophisticated, it says that the more sophisticated works of art first appear in the fossil record 40,000 and 50,000 years ago, and evidence for religious expression appears only 50,000 years ago. So the origin date for modern human predates or precludes any possibility of any humanoids being our ancestors, since the Homo erectus died out 300 years ago, and the Homo neanderthalensis has been proven
Homo erectus died out 300 years ago?
300,000 years ago.
Oh,
And
300,000. Okay.
yeah, and the Homo neanderthalensis has been proven to be too genetically different from us to be our ancestor. Now
Okay,
that's a
okay, okay,
quote
okay. So hold on. Let me interrupt you here. Why is it that we can find Neanderthal DNA within our own DNA?
because they're our ancestors.
Jesus fucking Christ. I don't know
Yeah,
I don't know what to do with this guy out. I really
I'm sorry you don't understand, but
No, no,
just
no.
because
I understand, but you're you're saying that we were specially created, but yet we have ancestors that predate us.
I'm talking about our species, we didn't pop up. God didn't just
Oh
like
god.
pop up out of nowhere, you know. So we have the modern. There's just no. You can say that we're ancestors from the ape, but we didn't come from apes. But our species are similar to the ape, but we're similar. So that we're not. You know what I'm saying? They're our
Okay,
ancestors.
okay, okay, okay. So why is it that we can take these fossils that are in the Homo lineage? Why can we take these fossils? Like, let's say we could take their knees, right? We could take their knees, and we can trace back our own evolution, far back. And the farther back that we go, the more it looks like the extant great apes now, like gorillas, bonobos, orangutans.
Yeah,
Our knees as we go back in time look progressively more and more like the other apes that are out there in the wild now.
right.
Why, like, if we're so specially created, why is that?
Um. Well, this has to do with I'm not too sure your analogy about the knees thing, but this has to do with the confusion on whether evolution applies to the knees. Like, for example, people in evolution used to think that the giraffe's neck evolved because of food, right? Like, everyone believes that the giraffe's neck evolved because of food, and he had to get his neck grew long. He used to have a short neck; it grew long over time because he needed to get food from different branches. Well, that's actually false in evolution. His neck is long because it has to do with fighting. Like, when the other males they would fight, it was called necking, and it was for the women giraffe. And so the reason why giraffes have long necks is for fighting. Well, it had nothing to do with food. So, but it's similar. It's similar to why they have necks, and you can apply it. Like, you can say, well, they evolved. They have long necks because they evolved, and you can probably pull out some records that say that they evolved and that's why their necks are long. But they used to eat from the ground. They don't have to eat up, so they didn't know their necks didn't evolve from time. It's just something that's relatable, you know. So when you brought up the knees thing, like, how come you look at apes and knees, and how come we're not apes, and how come
Okay,
the
okay,
knees are long?
hold on. I get it. So going back to the giraffe thing.
Uh,
So are you? I just need to clarify a few things. When you talk about how the giraffes use their long necks to eat things, and you say that over time they just grew and grew and grew, are you talking about over the course of generations? Or are you talking about over the course of a single lifetime of a giraffe?
I would say through generations, because a single lifespan of a giraffe won't his neck won't grow any longer. But
Okay.
what I'm talking about is that their neck is long not because of time and evolution. Their neck is long because they used it to fight. You can look this up. It's called
Okay.
the neck.
How does their long necks helping them to fight? Like, who were they fighting? Were they fighting each other? How were they using this long neck in order to survive? Because, I mean, as far as like what I know, like how natural selection and everything works. I mean, can you explain to me how a long neck helps them to survive better through fighting? Because, I would say that them being in a certain environment and their necks starting out short, and the ones that had longer necks were able to reach higher food sources so that they could actually eat, and so that would be a one particular selective pressure for long necks and giraffes. But what I'm wanting to like see, I've formulated that particular idea out. The one of the selective pressures was that their necks grew long so that they could reach higher food sources so that they could survive in their environment. So what I need to know from you is how does the long necks help in fighting so that they can survive?
The long necks help them survive for the reason that when they would fight usually to appease to the woman giraffe, and the long neck made the woman giraffe like that giraffe more. So the longer the neck, the woman giraffe would like that. So the other male giraffe would come along and try to prove himself. Maybe he has a shorter neck, and he's trying to prove himself to the girl giraffe, and they would fight. It's called necking. Necking is a form of fighting with giraffes. You can look up the word necking, and that they were designed to fight. Their necks didn't evolve to get trees on. That's a myth. Like their necks didn't evolve.
Okay. So what you're describing here has an actual scientific name. I'm wondering if you can actually name that particular scientific name.
The giraffe and the necking.
Well, this whole process that you're talking about, like the whole explanation that you're talking about here, it has a scientific name for it. Can you name that particular thing?
Name the thing. I can't name the thing. What's the name?
Okay. Well, what you basically just described was sexual selection.
There you go. That's good.
Yeah, but you
Yeah.
didn't know that. You did. I mean, you claim to have such vast knowledge and have read so many fucking things on evolution, and you supposedly understand all of this shit, but you don't even have the basic like dictionary for an evolutionary or an evolution conversation. Like sexual selection, natural selection, not unnatural, but artificial selection. Like these are basic types of selection that happen that are the driving force behind evolution, and you don't even know what those things are.
Yeah, I mean, I know about it. I mean, I'm not a
No, you
biologist.
didn't. You didn't know
I
about
mean,
sexual selection?
it's not a big deal to not know a term. You can always go back and reread it. I don't see the problem. But
I like how now it's not a big deal not to know a term, but earlier it was me that didn't understand like what punctuated equilibrium was.
are
You
you
think
kidding
I don't
me?
understand evolution. Like I like how now it's fine not to know what a term is or anything like that,
No,
but
no, no, no,
before
no.
it was
Just
such a fucking
you have to read books on this subject. I didn't say I memorized all these books. I read them, but there's going to be a few things I have to go back and refresh. I mean, you don't have to be an asshole about it. Or maybe you do. I don't know. Maybe you do. I don't know.
you haven't seen my channel, have you?
No, I've seen it, bro. I understand. But let's move on now. Let's move on. Because again, back to the fossil record. Um, again, I mean, I can probably name a whole bunch of things you have to look up and don't know, and you don't know terms. I don't want to play the game just because you don't know this and then you don't know what you're talking about. That's a stupid logical fallacy. Like you point out one thing I don't know and say I don't know everything else. That's
Well,
ridiculous.
that's not what I said. I
That's
didn't
what
I
you
didn't
did.
say that.
That's what you did. You said, if I don't know this one term, then you don't know everything else you just said. I mean, that's a very poor way of trying to communicate to somebody. I mean, just because someone doesn't know a certain, I can tell you a whole bunch of things right now you don't know and probably have to look up. It's not a big deal that you have to look it up. So just because you have to look it up doesn't mean you don't know what you're talking about. It just means that you
Well,
have to
no, I
gather
mean,
more.
okay. Look, true. Look, I'm fine with that. I'm fine. I want people to do the research. I want them to even just do a basic Google define on things. My point was was that earlier you were chastising me about not knowing certain things, but now when the tables have turned on you, it seems like you don't really have a problem with it. So that was my whole point right there. I wasn't trying to communicate anything with you. I wasn't trying to suggest that you don't know anything based on that one particular fact. I said that you don't know anything because of the entire stream so far where you've demonstrated that you don't know anything. Like, that's my evidence that you don't know anything, that you don't know these basic terms. You don't know what evolution is, apparently. You don't know what natural selection is. You don't seem to really know what you're saying when you talk about evolution.
I think the only thing you could do is just tell me I don't know, but you yourself probably don't know either. So I tried to explain to you that you don't know what the three main types of evolution. You don't know what macroevolution is. You don't know what punctuated equilibrium is. You don't know what the
I
amoeba
do,
is.
though. I
You don't
read the
know.
definition directly off of Google, but I
Yeah.
knew what punctuated equilibrium was before that. I just wanted to give you the direct definition that you can get in like less than 5 seconds.
Well, I was doing the same thing, man. I was trying to see if you can quote it with me less than 5 seconds, and you failed. So it's hilarious. So like you didn't get it either. So I try to ask you what genetic mutation and modification is, and you didn't get it. So I try to explain to you about genetic drift, and you fell asleep. So
I
you
did
went into
not. No. See, I don't know why you think that you could just be this dishonest in the very same hangout that we're
I
having,
did
because
not.
I read from the Berkeley website about evolution exactly what gene flow was, so that I didn't potentially misrepresent it or anything like that. I read directly from an academic source the basic concept of gene flow, which really is all you need in order to have a conversation like I was trying to have here. That,
And
but
I was, I was
hold on. Thank you, honey. Let's get back to the topic though. Like, can you? But before we head out, because it's getting on past an hour, I want to know: is there any particular prediction that creationism can make that evolution cannot account for? Like, what kind of prediction can creationism make?
a prediction. Well, what kind of prediction creationism can make? Well, we don't really go by predictions. Maybe like prediction. No, I'm not. I'm not. I don't like that term prediction because like it has nothing to do with the actual data from. If you're talking about natural selection, you're talking about chemicals. You're talking about your brain. You're talking about your own reason, your intellect. On the if you believe that evolution is true, and you seem to believe that it is true, um, that means your brain is a mindless, unguided process by an advanced primate. So if you are an advanced primate, then your brain is nothing but a mindless, unguided process by chemical mutation. So when you use logic, for example, um, it's basically just your brain using its own DNA. So you don't have any free will or anything like that. Because like you're basically if you're saying that we came from evolution, then everything is predetermined by our DNA, it's predetermined by our RNA, and everything that we say and do is from a mindless, unguided process by evolution. Now that's something I don't believe. I'm a Christian, so what we can produce and what we can predict is the fact that we have the data that we are not just a mindless, unguided process by evolution. I mean, we have choices, we have reason, we have intellect. But if you're going to believe that evolution is true, then you're going to say that in the absence of God, we don't need God, so therefore our brains is nothing but a came from Darwinian evolution by natural selection. It's a mindless, unguided process by mutation in chemicals. So there's no objective or ultimate or absolute standard. So everything is subjective, relative, and deterministic from evolution. So, like, whenever you say that, I don't know certain things, that's fine. That has to do with the chemical reactions in your brain that are responding to produce proper logical inference. So when your brain produces logical proper inference, it has to do with the chemicals and mutation from natural selection. Now, I don't believe we came from evolution because I don't believe our brain is nothing but brain barf and brain fizz. It's like saying if I take 2 cans of soda and I open them up and they both explode, which one is telling the truth? Well, neither of them is telling the truth because it's just fizz. So that's how it is on the atheistic view. On the worldview, your brain is just fizz from evolution. There really is no objective truth to natural selection and the complex sociological and biological means
Okay,
that we.
okay, okay, okay. Skyout, you're. I've let you go on for a pretty long while. You did
Okay.
not cover what I asked. Because what I asked was what predictions can creationism make that we like, for instance, evolution can make predictions about what kind of organisms we should expect at certain points in history. We can. That's how Tiktaalik was found. We were able to predict where and at what layer of the column, the geological column, we should find that particular organism, and we did. So that's one example of how evolution can be used to predict certain things in reality. So I'm wondering, on creationism, what kind of predictions can you make that would prove to be true using the intelligent designer creation model?
Mm. Using the intelligent design creation model, what we can predict is truth in reality, like things that happen exist in reality. So we can predict things that actually happen in reality. So what we can do in the creationism and design, worldview, we can we can produce things not from evolution, not from natural selection. We can design things and we can create things in reality.
So
So that way, go ahead.
so do you think that humans wield evolution like some kind of tool?
No, 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 no. No, 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 no. Humans don't wield evolution like a tool.
It kind of, I mean, it sounded like that, but okay, okay. So let's go back. Let's go back to chromosome 2 in humans and how that relates to other apes. Now, as I've explained before, chromosome 2 is a fusion of two separate chromosomes from our ape ancestors, right? It's an end-to-end fusion. We know this because there are telomeres in the middle of an arm of the chromosome. There's also two centromeres, which are vital parts of every chromosome. And so we find this evidence that evolution would predict to be there. How does creationism explain the genetic structure of chromosome 2 in humans?
By the fossil record. Because if you actually look at chromosome 2 and the predictions of chromosome 2, the evidence and the data is actually absent because they don't have enough information to even say that chromosome 2 came from the Homo erectus and Neanderthal. So basically, when you take creation and design, we don't need that. We don't need that form at all, that chromosome 2. We have the design and creation that we can design and create certain aspects that contradict that chromosome 2 because we have
So,
more data.
so are you saying that chromosomes can be found in fossils, and also, did you say that we don't need a second chromosome?
You're talking about chromosome 2 in relationship with apes, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So chromosome 2 in a relationship with apes. Like basically, if we're talking about natural selection and chromosome 2 in apes, you look at the fossil record, the evidence, did that chromosome 2 predict that we came from apes? Did we come from the Homo erectus? And like I said, not the fact that the fossil records are inside the. No, that's not what I meant. I meant like the fossil record when you look at the data and the result in the actual table, what it's very clear that that the 2% that you're referring to is incomplete, and we it simply doesn't add up to the fact that the natural selection and Darwinian evolution could predict anything in reality, since it's just a theory of evolution. So, and that would be my
Let's
response.
do away with the whole "it's just a theory" thing because it's a scientific theory, which is built off of a preponderance of evidence that is rigorously tested and has been yet to be proven false. So that's what the scientific theory of evolution is. But also, how are we supposed to look at fossils and determine like chromosome count or anything like that? Like how do the fossils give you an indication of how many chromosomes our ancestors had?
You can study it. You can take whatever ape or 2%
That
organ.
why the fuck did I think of that? It's like, oh, how do we figure out how many chromosomes this motherfucker Homo habilis had? Oh, you just study it, John.
Yeah, yeah, you do. You just study it. There's a lot of biologists in the field that I could quote that probably know about this subject a little bit more than I do, but I could
Do
definitely.
these biologists sort of take the fossil out, look at it, and like, nope, that doesn't look like it has a second chromosome. Fuck it.
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. That's exactly what they do. They
Oh, I'm so
actually,
glad they go through such scientific rigor to test.
I guess, yeah, it's silly. I know. I don't believe in evolution either. I mean, it's silly.
No. I accept evolution for the fact I'm just like, oh my god.
It's funny. It's hilarious. I know.
No,
I
it's
mean,
hilarious how you think this shit works when it really
it
doesn't.
is. It's hilarious how you think this shit doesn't work. So,
No. It's no. Trust me. The laughter is all on my end at this point
yeah,
because you,
I
you
think the laughter is on my part because
okay. So, I really don't know what else to bring up here. You haven't really been able to
I know.
explain anything. I get
I
that you
know.
think that you've been explaining things, but you've been reading things
I,
off of
I,
your script.
I know you're not able to explain yourself. You're not be able to explain the genetic drift. You couldn't explain the 2%, and you didn't understand what natural evolution is or complex sociology. So, yeah, you didn't understand about the top fields and biologists, which is okay.
Okay, okay. This is a fucking surreal stream. I have to say.
It's
Anyways,
so real to me too, man. I'm feeling the surrealness all around.
oh, I guess so. Anyways, so I think that we're gonna go ahead and end here. I've got one super chat that I need to address, but other than that, this. Oh man. Anyways, I appreciate you taking time out of your night there, Skyout, and
Well,
yeah.
I appreciate you taking the time out too, man. I didn't mean to offend you. I appreciate you taking the time out. I apologize if I made you angry or anything like that. Wasn't my intent. I'm a Christian, so we're probably gonna bump heads.
I mean, I
So
laughed my ass off. I'm not mad.
I'm not mad either, man. It's all good.
Oh god. Okay. Anyways, thank you, Sky Out. And I guess I will talk to you later. Okay.
All right, man. Take it easy.
See ya. Oh my god. Hold on. Let me get back to main cam. Oh Jesus Christ. I mean, I'm gonna have to rewatch this like tomorrow or something because I this I have no words. Like, how are you supposed to figure out how many chromosomes are in fossils? You just study it. It's like, holy shit! Had no idea. Just study it was was a good method. Oh yes, I definitely. Honey, I have no idea what to even start researching for all of the word salad that he put out. Like, do I start with a cookbook? Like, because all of that word salad, I mean, it had some of that deadly ass romaine in it. Like, somebody fell asleep at the romaine, like, little conveyor belt and like there was a giant ass amoeba on it that just went right through and fucking infected the entire thing. Oh man. Anyways, I don't know if you've got any questions in the chat. I've got a couple minutes where I can respond to anything. I do thank Mr. Bear Atheist for helping my sanity. And then we've also got Cadence who says, for the shot of alcohol, you need to handle this. Also, I just handled fossils a few minutes ago and couldn't see chromosomes. You are welcome to study my fossils too. Did you really study them? Did you study them? Maybe you didn't quote like while you were studying. Did you like quote a biologist while you did it? And did that give you the foresight to see the chromosomes? Josiah says, Merry Mythmas. Thank you there, Josiah. Are you, Michael W. Robles said, are you a masochist? Fuck. Apparently, I did not realize that it was going to be such a clusterfuck because, like, he just kept rambling off the same shit. Also, Cadence, how do you look harder at something? Like, how do you study something harder? Like, I just imagine somebody looking at a fossil and it's like, I can't see them yet. I should look harder. You gotta hold your tongue right? Yeah. Saxy Calzone says, how does Skyout rank among all of the crazies you've talked to? I would say that Skyout's probably the closest thing to a Poe without him actually admitting that he's a Poe. Like, I feel like I've walked away from this, like, thinking that he's a Poe. Like, there's no way somebody can be that dumb. I mean, at every single point, he redirected every question that I had. The first half of this whole thing, I was sitting there trying to just get him to explain like the evolutionary process to me, and he just fucking couldn't do it. Terrence Clark says, how many of your direct discussion vids have you had to devolve into utter nonsense? Aren't you you aren't expecting it at this point? Well, yeah, I know, right? I mean, I should have expected it going into nonsense, but I really thought that we would just, like, I thought that he would be straightforward with me about it and just be like, oh, yeah, here's how I understand evolution to happen. And it's just like, I guess Sky Out, I guess Sky Out, he was, fuck, I lost it. He was close to the edge. I don't know, maybe. Buck Warp Zone says, your white bear thing was really on point and made him lose his shit. Great. Raging Atheist says he's definitely a Poe. Microbloganism says either Poe or really fucking stupid. I know, right? I mean, I really can't believe that this person would actually think that that's how evolution works or anything or anything like that. Like it. Oh fuck, I forgot to ask him that. I meant to ask him that at the very beginning, but he wanted to jump directly into it because I was going to lead into it a little bit with asking him why he refers to himself in the third person. But fuck, I forgot to ask him about that. Damn it. See, one of my favorite songs from the group, yes. Yeah, Quentin Van Boom. Hard to say. I want to say Poe, but the internet has made me realize the levels of stupid that exist. Yeah, I agree. The levels of stupid out there are just fucking crazy. So I don't know for sure if he's a Poe, but it kind of would seem like he's a Poe. It's because he has never lost a debate. I asked him. Oh, I'm sure. I mean, if you heard him there at the end, he was like, you don't understand evolution. You don't understand punctuated equilibrium. Like, he says that I don't understand these things, but I literally read off the definition and showed him that I understood, like, the process of all of that. And, like, I understood what the definition was, what it means, and how he wasn't explaining it and everything like that. But yet, I'm the one that doesn't understand it. Like, he couldn't grasp the idea of starting at the top and then drilling our way down, because I wanted to start at a point where he was just basically explaining the process. And then we would get into, like, where it goes from there as far as the scientific evidence goes. I don't know why I thought that would happen. I really don't. Terrence Clark says any bio professor would fail this guy. Even a creationist bio professor would, because that's just not what understanding something means. Buck Warp Zone says, I really think he didn't want to leave his God thing because of all his relative and family who might reject him afterward. Maybe, I don't know. Raging Atheist, I know it is so funny. Dragnot and Sokka had him turning heels. It was great. When did Dragnot and Sokka talk to him? I don't know. I don't know when that happened, but I'd love to see that. He said anthropology. Yeah, I know. He did, and that's kind of funny because he was talking about like chemicals and single-celled organisms and shit. Maybe. I mean, I'm fairly certain that's the point where he was talking about anthropology. He was projecting so hard he owes IMAX compensation. Mandelbrot said his evidence for biblical creation is that bears do not turn into dogs. Fuck yeah, that's solid right there. Oh, Uhan Roderick Brocephus 2020. A little bit of Brocephus came out tonight. I have to admit, right there at the very end. I was just tired of the bullshit. Anyways, I missed. Oh, Uhan missed the entire thing, honey. You've got to go back and hear the shit that was coming out of his mouth. It's crazy. Oh, okay. So Gary sent me the song "So Close to the Edge" or "Close to the Edge." I appreciate that. At some point, I swear I could hear him say "Jesus Christ." Anyways, I think I'm gonna head out, guys. It was great hanging out with you guys tonight. So sorry we missed the stream this past Friday night, but you heathens are awesome. Thanks to the Skeptic Mafia, we got more videos that are coming out next week, so be prepared for that. The week after that, we've got the War on Christmas that's going to be coming out. So I will talk to you heathens later. Don't forget to stand up, use your voice, all that kind of good shit. Bye, heathens.